Okay, amazing. Hello. We are here and we are so excited to be with the playwrights of the 2021 2022.
Ooh,
Oh my God, this is a whole new year. 2022 BIPOC Reading Series Festival at UCSB Department of Theater and Dance. This festival is sponsored by Launchpad, Amplify, New and Reimagined Works in collaboration with National New Play Network. Okay, so I think first off, we should just introduce everybody, say where you're based, whatever that means to you, if you're whether like where you are right now or what home is to you. Um, and I'm really interested in knowing I wanted to throw in a fun fact. So I wanted to know something that you all discovered while writing your play. It could be something you discovered about yourself, something you discovered about like the characters, something that has nothing to do with the play at all and just happened to happen at the same time and you just discovered it and it just excited you. Just some new thing that came about it. So however you interpret that question, it could be you discovered nothing and the play just came to you and it was just very clear. Whoever wants to take it off.
okay, great. Woo! Hi, I'm Stephanie Kingston Walters. My pronouns are she, her, and my what feels like home to me is Philadelphia. My play is Acetone Wishes and Plexiglass Dreams. And something that I discovered in writing this is that um, I gravitate towards similar themes in a lot of my work. And I think that the thing I discovered was learning to embrace that and not feeling scared that, like, am I just doing the same thing over and over with different names of characters? And um, because I think that the ways we navigate grief and explore grief will always change and will always be different. So, by allowing different voices to process their grief on the stage, we can give access to people who are maybe struggling with it themselves in the audience. And so, I think what I've discovered is allowing myself that freedom to continue exploring something I'm interested in and something that brings me meaning, and hopefully brings other people meaning as well.
Nice. Yeah, I sometimes feel that way too. Like, oh, I just wrote this. Is this just the same thing? No, it's still important to hear. That's really beautiful. Thank you.
I will go. My name is Christopher Oscar Pena. I wrote a play called Los Feliz, depends on who you ask, which is part of the Rorschach of the play. I am in LA right now where I live. Live here in New York, but I am super happy to be here because I actually went to UCSB many, many, many years ago. We will not say when. So it's a homecoming of sorts, which is great. The thing that I learned writing this play is I have this like thing that people of color constantly have to be saddled with writing about race over and over and over. Like it's our responsibility. White people get to write about like getting fucked up and going to parties and heartbreak and other things. Um, and we have to do all the heavy lifting always. It's very rare that you see a play by a person of color that isn't sort of tackling race in some way. And so I wrote this play very aggressively to not have to do that. And at some point, what I learned is that at some point it still made its way back in. The thing that was exciting is that I feel like it made its way back in a different way, in a sort of in a way that felt more surprising and actually that I'm actually now interested in questioning further. Um, uh, but when I ended, I was kind of like, oh, I wonder if it's possible for us to write plays that aren't always in conversation with whiteness, even if we're not trying to do that.
I'll jump in. Hi, I'm Caridad Svich. I'm the playwright of Memories of Overdevelopment. And the play feels a little bit like a synthesis of sort of like 20 years of playwriting. So mainly to do with themes. So it's interesting that sort of this idea of themes that are recurring in people's writing, which of course is the natural thing for writers. Um, I've written a lot of plays that deal with tyranny and resistance and autocracies and surviving them and living through them. And um, but I'd never written about, or at least inspired by, I should say, family members who've gone through that. So, and I felt like time to do that. It was just like maybe it's time to sort of tell those stories. And so, yeah, I interviewed family members. I have family from Cuba and from Spain and from Argentina and from Venezuela and from Croatia, um, all of whom, on various levels, fled fascism, lived through the dirty wars in Argentina, didn't talk about them. I mean, there's so many sort of stories and untold stories in my family, of various levels of immigration, including, like my grandfather left Croatia because he was fleeing fascism, uh, in sort of the Croatian-Italian border, uh, goes to Argentina. My family was fleeing Spain, went to Cuba because they were fleeing fascism in Spain. So this kind of like, uh, it's just all over my family history, and I felt like a release of sorts. I think when I've written other plays that have dealt with these themes, um, maybe I didn't think of it as being so personal. I don't know. Maybe I was just playing a trick with myself as a writer. But this time I just felt like owning up. You know what I mean? And of course, what I end up doing is writing a play about art making. So about what happens when you filter something through an artistic lens, and what happens when you present trauma, and how do you hold trauma, and what does holding trauma mean, and what does it mean in terms of capturing that in a filmic way, because the play is conceived as a play that is a film. So that's sort of some of the stuff I was thinking about in terms of, I wrote it precisely this week last year. So this feels like it was sort of interesting when I got the call from Risa, because I was like, what? This feels like a strange kind of like checking back in on the play. What are you doing? So yeah, so it's cool. It's cool to be virtually at UCSB, exploring something that kind of lit my imagination, kind of in a moment of sort of desperation. You know, we all know this. New year, you're like, what am I going to do with my life? And I was like, I'm going to write a play. So yeah, so I wrote a play, and now I'm back here with the play. So cool.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it's very cool being in it too. We got to explore some great things in rehearsal last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Lisa Sinayadring. I live in LA, Tahoe Land in Highland Park, and I wrote Happy Fall, a queer stunt spectacular. And this play, I started this play, Rogue Artist started this play, I think 2017, 2018, and then I was commissioned to write it in 2019. And it's been through what feels like to me completely new drafts, like whoosh, get in, whoosh, start over. And I feel like I'm learning like the work requires all of yourself and requires your humble, curious self in a way that I don't think I was willing to give the first few drafts, and that I hope I'm giving now. So I'm just learning, like, the lessons with each player are totally different, and as they should be. And then also I'm really grateful for friends and for help, like Rogue Artist Ensemble workshopping it with me, East West Players championing it for this. And this is a play, some plays you can go write on your own and then you give it to people and they're like, oh, it's good. This is not a play that I think could have done that. I think this play for me had to go through a lot of life and still is figuring itself out. But it feels very much, it's written in collaboration with Rogue Artists, and it feels very much a community effort.
It's very, very interesting that you bring up how it's changed over time, and how you've changed in approaching it. We just had our first rehearsals last night. We just heard it aloud. I don't know if y'all have heard these plays aloud, but you haven't heard it from UCSB aloud, so it's a whole new experience. So how was that? I know we're only a day in, but like, how is that? Has that come up with any thoughts? Did you leave the rehearsal and go, oh, I gotta write this right now? Like, did anything happen?
Well, I'll jump in to say that I'm maybe in a unique situation. I don't know the other plays at the moment, is that it's written for 2 actors, and we have 9. So so but that was also part of the experiment of it. I have a note at the front of the play where I talk about, there's a way of doing this, perhaps, where you don't have just 2, where you do kind of, and then suddenly this opportunity presented itself, and I was like, oh, this is a chance to try that idea that I kind of just have in my little note at the front of the play, but maybe it doesn't work, or maybe it does work, so yeah, it's thrilling to figure out like how we can fracture this. What does that fracturing mean? So yeah, so I think that's where my brain is. My brain is like first rehearsal, I'm like, ooh, what is this? How does this function? And how does it change that relationship to the audience, and to how the play kind of resonates, both kind of internally but also externally in terms of form. So yeah, so that's super exciting. And what a privilege, right? Rarely, most people would be like, can you just have 2? So I'm like, it's so nice to be able to say 9. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I've certainly been clacking away at my keyboard today trying to like fix it. But what was amazing is that the folks are so talented that I could really hear the work as it is. Sometimes you're like, oh, and we bopped around. A lot of people read a lot of things yesterday. But everyone was able to just give it life in a way that I could hear where I'm needing to change things and cutting and adding and all that.
Yeah, I'm really interested in writing plays about young people, and because I feel like often they're just not seen on stage, and we tell young people to go to the theater, but I don't understand why they would, because plays aren't about them. And so it was really nice to just write a play for this age group, actually, and to just hear them respond to it. It was really important for me that it felt A, that they were excited about it, but B, that it didn't feel like a much older person, which I'm not, writing, like you watch TV and you're like, oh, a 50-year-old wrote that scene, and so it really was important for me that it felt authentic to their experience, and just hearing them sort of respond to it yesterday was really exciting to feel that they were in it and it felt real to them.
I'm getting a very large sense of pace from just even one read. So a lot of my revision today has been about like leaning into the energy in the room and like playing with the pace of things. And something that I discovered from yesterday and today, and oh my gosh, no one tell Risa, but I might be adding a character. It's fine. So Risa's video is gonna like pop up and be like,
She's like, oh no.
But so yeah, I feel like I am really learning from the actors. My amazing director, Julia Cho, was switching the roles around in our rehearsal room yesterday. Even though, we kind of have the 4-track plus the stage directions. And it's just so fun hearing so many different people read a specific person, because very, very rarely, especially in a non-ensemble based process, would that happen for me. So I was really leaning into that energy and the excitement that we had, and feeling like pace at certain moments that I thought, oh, this feels so beautiful and luxurious. And yesterday I'm like, no, it needs to be like active and like on its feet and almost like pulsing at each other. So it just felt really good to have live bodies saying the words. I know that sounds like very simple about a play, right? It's like meant to be in a human body and have those words coming out of them. But I think after so much time of sitting at our computers by ourselves, working on things, and not having the opportunity to maybe be in our creative spaces with our collaborators and our community, that this opportunity is allowing us to come back to what it means to truly collaborate, truly hear the words as like real live living spirit. So it's beautiful to be in the room. I'm excited to go tonight.
Yeah, so you said you're excited to go tonight. So just for tonight and for the rest of the week, like, what are you guys hoping to get out of this? What are some I like to, if you could see, I have a mirror here with a whole bunch of sticky notes with a whole bunch of like intentions, like I like to, like, I'm a very intention based person. Like this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to remind myself of it, and then it usually ends up happening. So let's set some intentions here. What do y'all want to get out of this experience? And you've already said some things that have already changed, so some things are already happening. So just, yeah, well, what do you guys want to get out of this?
I actually just again like I went to school here, and when I was at school, there was a sort of a festival similar to this, where a bunch of really great older successful artists came, like Lisa Portez and Che Yu and Les Waters, and then there were people that I met when I was like 19 and who like actually now are people that I collaborate with. And so for me, like these experiences are always much more than just the play. Like I always think that the play is like the excuse for like the first date with like all these other collaborators. It's like, am I going to meet a really exciting actor here? You know, my director, Jenny Coons, and I like love each other. I'm a huge fan of her work, but we've never worked together. So this is like a really good opportunity for us to further connect. The same with Lindsay Alba. So I just feel like that's the other thing that's really great about these experiences is it's finding like the next group of collaborators to keep working with. So that's my intention, is to find collaborators.
I'll sort of piggyback on that to say that feels like two intentions, three, maybe four, but one of them has to do with the fact that I worked with Jonathan Green as I guess he was sort of like the producer slash dramaturg on an early iteration of this play in the summer of 2021. And so, but you know, he is a director. And so it's a good chance to kind of play together in that new kind of configuration as a relationship, but also bringing in Yasmin, who's a wonderful dramaturg, into the process. So playing with folks and playing with a beautiful team at UCSB, a wonderful group of actors and designers, and people behind the scenes doing things that some people out there won't see. And then also, you know, I think plays always lead to other plays, you know, so it's like, you know, this is a new piece, but, you know, my brain is like always thinking about 5 other things that I want to build on. And I think because also, I think that certain plays, depending on where they land in your trajectory, are asking questions, both emotionally and formally, that are kind of spiriting you into the next batch of plays that you'll be making, you know. And I feel like this play is sort of functioning that way, because I remember when I wrote it, and I just started to share it with people last year. I was very shy about sharing it with people. And people kept saying, why did you share it with more people? And I just said, you know, I don't know. It's doing something differently. It's that place of uncertainty and the unknown, right? So it's like it's doing something a little bit different than I'm kind of used to, even though, you know, it's very much my wheelhouse as a writer. So, and then as I was kind of writing a couple of more plays right after it, I was like, oh, this does feel like like next phase, right? So some plays sort of function that way. They're kind of like next phase, here we go, and you kind of can't go back, right? Like they operate as a kind of like not a wall or a barrier, but a marker where you're like, okay, from this point on, this is the kind of work you'll be making, and then who knows, right? Then so I'm interested in the and then who knows part, because I'm like, where is this leading? Oh my god, yeah. So it feels like a cool path, and so I'm interested in the path. Yeah, I think that's the intention. It's like hopefully not give up along the way, which I think during these very difficult times. You know, you can wake up every day. Why do theater? Wah, 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 go to sleep, right? So I feel like, instead, it's like the beautiful thing about theater, and especially, you know, and I'm a big fan of digital theater, is that I feel like it is a life force. And so I feel like when you're making art, this kind of life force moves you to next life forces, but it also makes you think about, hopefully, about ways of moving forward in harmony and coexistence as the planet is on fire. How do you sort of rebuild? So I'm interested in those spaces of rebuilding, but it lives in a space of unknown, because you may not know what all the tools you need, right? So I feel like the play is sort of like the intention inside of it is like it's giving me and hopefully an audience and collaborators tools to move forward.
Moving forward. God, we need some moving forward right now.
Huge leaps and bounds.
I love what both of you just said. Going off what Karida was saying about, you were talking more of a macrocosmic view of like, I want this to lead me to where it leads me next and to create the emergence necessary. And so in the play, in my head, I was like, oh, I want to fix the play. Right? But I think in that way, at a clown teacher, Chris Bay say, you can't walk a cat, you got to let the cat walk you. And so in that way, to have a space for having intention to hold that space for something you don't have intention for yet, to have, hopefully, I think I'm getting to a place where the play is starting to tell me what it needs. And so it's like a moment of listening to the piece. And then also, I mean, this is a stunt show, so it's a hyper physical piece that we had all these, we have Selena Cerniak, I think is how I say her last name, is our stunt coordinator. And we had all these big plans for being in person. And now that we're online, what's interesting is that it's a stunt show about movies. It's about the movie business. And so now we have to use the camera to represent what we're thinking of doing theatrically. So I think we're learning about the lens in that way that I hope will feed the process as we go into physicalizing it on stage outside of the Zoom land.
Yeah, I think my intention, of course, like others are saying, is to, keep going and keep filling my bucket so that I can keep going and giving and being there for myself and for others. But I think something that I was really excited about when Risa emailed me, and is a large intention as I go forward, is collaborating with emerging artists and student artists, because as an educator myself, it's really important for me to help give them the confidence or the power, or just it's okay, somebody else did it and it's cool, you got this. It's hard sometimes, but whatever, it's fine. But I really want to help other people see how they can weaponize their art in whatever way that means to them, in whatever their art form is and whatever it is that they're fighting for. And I really want to kind of be that maybe confidant for someone if they need that. I don't think I had people who looked like me. And when I was an undergrad, especially going to a small school in the middle of central Pennsylvania. So, I hope so badly that programs like this continue to exist and continue to evolve, because new play development is critical for young and emerging artists to learn the skill set of what does it mean to be an artist in a new play development room. And then how do you as a artist create that new work, and what do you do when you're on the creative end of that room? So just collaboration and bringing their voices to the table is going to be really a large focus for me as we go through this next couple of days.
Well, as a hopeful representative of the young artists, thank you. We need it. We're floundering. I'm about to graduate college. I have no idea what I'm about to do. So you guys were talking a lot about how this specific project relates to the bigger world. Lisa, you said you used the word macrocosmic. And so I was interested in, this is a little bit more about you as individuals, but just what you do outside of this, in order to achieve these things that you want. Like Christopher, you're talking about the younger generation and getting them to be more involved in theater. So I'm very interested to know, just outside of this, what else are you guys working on? What else have you guys worked on? What are the plans? What's next? What's the larger scheme? How does this all fit into everything? Big question.
I mean, I'm not going to say I speak for everyone, but I feel like this is probably something we all share, is that we are very actively trying to shake up the system to include people of color in the mainstream. When I was, actually, this is going to sound terrible. For the longest time when I was in college, I'd only read white writers, right? It's like you read Chekhov, you read Miller, you read Shakespeare. I don't think I even read August Wilson when I was that age. I don't think I read August Wilson until I was in grad school, which is shocking. So when I also teach at NYU, and I teach third years, And I remember I walked in and I asked all these kids who are like elite and smart and bright and like the best of the best, and and I was like, name 5 writers of color, and none of them could name any. And their syllabi had always been Annie Baker and the same 5 writers. And so I made it a point that every syllabus that I ever had would not include anybody. Well, no straight white people, basically. I was like, queer, trans, of color, like that is the only thing that you're going to read from now on. And at the time, I was also the only person of color on the faculty, which is also not shocking. So I think that I would say that what I'm trying to do is just bring us to the conversation, and like not even like into the conversation. I'm like, I want us to be the fucking central middle only thing that we're talking about. So I only tend to focus my work on that. I'm also writing for TV, and I'm only writing on TV shows that are about people of color. So that is what I am doing.
That's pretty dope. That's pretty hard, I gotta say. You will read August Wilson. No.
They must. I mean, I'm Latino and I grew up in California, and I saw myself in August Wilson more than I'd seen myself in any other playwright. And I don't know, understand why like that opportunity had not been given to me beforehand, and I think that really is like a crime. And I think like we need to be doing better. I just don't understand why people don't know more,
Yeah, that's so important, because when you said that about saying name 5 playwrights of color, like I couldn't do it. Like I am a black playwright.
Got 4
Right.
right here though.
Oh yeah. Other than y'all. Well, that's easy. I don't want to give myself that out. That's easy. But that's very true. It's just not even in the conversation. And to hear that you're also extending that to TV, um, because that's where a lot of media is consumed. TV. That's also really cool.
All right, I'm off. I mean, I resonate a lot with what Chris just said, and I thank you for saying it. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a bunch. I'm an actor, writer, and director. I'm also not as far into the TV land as Chris is, but I'm trying to get in there. So I'm trying to make the Lisa Dring show happen, But and also in that, I'm trying to make spaces that are emergent, that are filled with creativity and helping us dismantle systems of supremacy and hierarchy and capitalism and racism. And I want to look at the hegemony we have and how many systems we have based on domination and oppression, and try to think about not anti this, but post this, right? So I don't want to spend so much time fighting as I want to do helping us dream of futures beyond. I'm looking at things I'm writing and wondering why I haven't written more about the climate, because it's really important, and I'm looking at writers that are doing so, and I'm really celebrating them and learning a lot from them. And yeah, and then also I'm trying to engage with my own freedom and evolve my mind. As I get further and further opportunities, I'm realizing how important it is to not take that lightly, because for so long I was like, oh, no one's listening to me. Oh. And then now I have these opportunities and people are like coming to me for things in various ways. And I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm not only worthy of that, but also have something to share from the depths of myself.
Amazing. Yeah, it's not all a fight. It reminds me of like there's a lot of people talking about doomsday preparation. They're taking like self-defense classes, or they're learning how to shoot a gun or something. But what about growing your own food? What about like learning how to sew your own clothes? Like those things that people don't, they're part of the growth process, about healing, about like what comes next, about how do we come together as a community. And it's so important, and it's often overlooked. So I resonate with that.
Just I'm thinking about, a lot of echoes, but also, one of the things that I feel is like super important is to fight for your freedom as an artist, and especially when, if if history historians are predicting that those freedoms are going to be severely curtailed very soon, especially in this country, unless a massive revolution happens, right? So I'm thinking a lot about how do you protect those freedoms and what does freedom mean, but also the beautiful freedom of the imagination. There was that wonderful interview with Pedro Almodovar recently in the LA Times talking about the premiere of Madres Paralelas. And the quote that was sort of tweeted out about it, where he said, when I face the typewriter, in his case, the typewriter, I just close my eyes and I let the imagination take me where it will. And that in a way that fighting for that kind of freedom is so sublime and so important, because it has to do with allowing yourself to go to places that are uncensored, but also take you. And I think that what I'm saying about that is that there's kind of conundrum about being a writer, is that part of it is that, especially if you're a playwright, part of it is that you're a civic artist, right? So you're doing work for the public in a public, and you're in the public discourse, and so it is always political. But there's another part of it that's like, I just want to write about a tree. What does that tree mean? And so, and I think that you have to fight for both of those things. You have to fight for both of those stances to be true, and I think that sometimes the stance around, there are a million emergencies right now in the world, and as writers, I think the natural response is I want to respond to all of them. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, please, I have to save the world with my writing. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's a cool responsibility to give yourself. It also can be like a terrible burden, because that burden can be that you may not let your consciousness take you where it actually needs to go, that may actually respond to those emergencies in a way that's more truthful. And so I think about, like, we recently lost the playwright Robert Holman, for example. And there's this wonderful little story about him when he started writing plays, where he was just like, he was sitting on a bus going to school, and he was sort of a nerdy kid, and he had his notebook out, and he was just kind of like, he saw these like two girls on the front of the bus, and they had a goldfish bowl in their lap, and he was like, wonder why they have a goldfish bowl in their lap and they're going to school. And it was like, I'm not going to ask them, but I'm going to start writing a story about them. And of course, the story turned out to be a play. And it was his first play, and he put it in his notebook. And it was literally just him kind of like imagining. And if you know Holman's work, I mean, that he kind of was like he spoke to the moment, but in a way that was oblique often. But that obliqueness is actually incredibly resonant. And so I think that, I'm interested in kind of the underlayers of society, and how to, and also the underland. And I know I talk about the underland in my play, but it's like that idea of how do we listen to the earth, and how do we listen to the systems that are underneath the earth that are speaking to us. And that actually that is connected to the writing process, and that it's actually connected to actualizing, which is part of what your question is about. And so I'm thinking about, like, those are actually spaces we need to fight really hard for, because they're intangible, but they need to be protected.
Thank you.
So outside of this space of UCSB, which, the virtual space, as I've never been to California, but someday, outside of the space, I am inundated with imagination all day. So I love hearing you talk about this, Caridad, because I am a preschool teacher. So talk about like peak imagination station. And I am grateful and honored to be a preschool teacher. It is one of my most beautiful, I feel like, gifts in my life is working with young people. And it has taught me a lot about the energy of theater, because all day it is just, make it up as much as you want, for them and for me. I mean, honestly. And I have a great time learning about what are our impulses as humans, and how do we get those things right? And like what's the right and wrong of it, right? This very like black and white of it. But I just have a great sense of play all day with my students. And so bringing that into my artistry has been super, super fun, even though I don't really, you know, write plays that my students could particularly see. But then when I'm not in that space and I'm in my more artistic space, I am one of the founding members and lead artists of the Philadelphia Asian Performing Artists. And we have a Playwrights project where I work with emerging AAPI playwrights in Philadelphia and helping to make space and cultivate and help give the education that we need. Like I want it to be a space where people can come and learn and feel confident and step into the world and say, here's my draft. How can you help me, right? How can you be my collaborator? So that's a large part of my space outside of here. And wanting so much to create more opportunities for AAPI performers in Philadelphia and then nationally as well. So I think that what's great about working with the students at UCSB on the West Coast is that I can introduce them to, this is an organization, you're about to graduate, this is an organization, if you're ever on the East Coast, that would love to like adopt you and learn about you and hear about you and help you cultivate whatever seeds you're sowing, because we believe in you and we believe that there's space for you. So that's something that, you know, I give a lot of my soul to and I give a lot of my heart to.
I love the connections that are coming out of this festival that I'm sure are going to come out of this festival and for future festivals. I believe that will make time. That will wrap our time. Thank you all so much for being a part of this interview and a part of this process. We at UCSB love y'all and y'all plays, and I'm glad that you could all be here.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much,
having us.
Cyrus.